You're listening to the Crowdfunding Nerds Podcast, a podcast that will help you succeed before, during, and after your crowdfunding event. And now, here is your host, Andrew Lowen.
Hey everybody, and welcome to another fantastic episode of Crowdfunding Nerds. I am your esteemed host, Andrew Lowen, and I am joined as always by Rick and Sexy Irish Sean. How you guys doing?
Hi guys.
What's up, nerds?
That does not sound sexy at all. We're actually going to dive into an old notebook of Sean's because he found some talking points about business from an Irish conference that just sounded awesome. It sounded super relevant to everybody that would listen to this podcast. And no matter where you're at in the business, if you're kind of new, if you haven't even actually launched a Kickstarter yet, or if you're a veteran, I think that there are lessons in here that will benefit you. So let's do this. But first, what's up, nerds?
It's plastered all over Kickstarter. In fact, I thought it might be hard to find, but apparently it's the featured product on Kickstarter right now. One of my old school favorite shows, Mystery Science Theater 3000, is doing another Kickstarter for another season. And right now, I just pulled up their Kickstarter. Their initial goal is $2 million, which guarantees 3 episodes. And right now, they just hit the $2 million with 29 days to go. By the time you guys hear this podcast, they probably will have like maybe a week or two left. 10,000 backers so far, so pretty good. And they've made their goals. So we know we're going to get at least 3 episodes. 3 episodes.
So I have no idea what this is. I've never seen this in my life. So this is like they're recreating an old show. Is that the idea?
We're sending them cheesy movies. La la la. The worst we can find. La la la. They have to sit and watch them. Wow. Oh, I can't remember the rest of them. Sorry. I'm not really good at that song. But anyway, it is a very nerdy show about this guy who's trapped in a space station that goes around Earth. And the evil people that have trapped him there make him watch these old, corny science fiction movies. And then him and his couple robots have to sit down and watch them, and then they make fun of it.
It's just pithy commentary about these stupid, like, not even, B movie would be exaggerating. I mean, these are like D- movies that are so funny because of the commentary. It's like,
but some of them aren't too bad. You sit down and you watch them like, well, it wasn't too bad. I mean,
yeah.
So Mr. Sean, I'm curious to know about this old abandoned notebook that you had where you had all these secrets written into them. Is this like The Secret?
It sounds
then,
like
then it got lost and forgotten, and now you found it again. And he's actually got the notebook. Look at that. He just flipped the page. Yeah. I saw him.
Do you know Nicholas Cage, bro?
Why is it pink and purple?
That's what trendy designers design their stuff like when you go to a trendy design conference.
And is that the number?
He's kind of above questioning in this area because he's sexy and Irish, so he would know. I think the largest convention in the world is the San Diego Comic-Con. Am I wrong about that?
Well, it depends. Comic-Con is capped at 130-ish thousand people. So, because we have these crazy fire laws in California, so we can't.
I say it smells so bad in there.
If it wasn't yes. capped, yeah,
bunch of stormtroopers that forgot their deodorant, dude.
If it is, yeah. it's really bad. It's all these teens running around with BO problems. If it wasn't capped, I would say it would be the largest. However, there's a couple in Europe that are a little bigger inside. Comic-Con also has outside events. They have third-party events. They have events at other hotels as well because the convention center is full. Overall, with all those people that hang around the San Diego area, it's almost 250,000 people.
Let's get into this, Sean. So first of all, can you kind of frame this a little bit for our audience? I know the notebook is, you went to a business conference, and you wrote some notes down and that kind of thing, but will you kind of enlighten us?
Sure, yeah. So I was cleaning my office and I just found this old notebook and I was just flicking through it and I was like, oh, I have some notes here of this conference I went to probably about 3 years ago by this stage. It was a creative design conference. My brother's a graphic designer by trade, so he went with me and we went to this creative conference. So it has everything from graphic designers to filmmakers, from people who are involved in print to people who are involved in advertising. It's just a big conference. And there was some speaker, I can't remember the lady, she gave a pretty good talk on basically the business of the creative design space, but really it was just business advice in general. And I was looking through it. It's like, oh, these are some pretty interesting tips. They're good things which would help anybody in any industry. And I was thinking that would make a good episode. So I suggested it, and here we are.
That's awesome. So we have a list of 8 bullet points, I guess 8 listed points that we're going to be kind of going through, and we're just going to be riffing off of what kind of comes to mind as a result of these things. So, Sean, you want to start us off with number 1?
Number one is be obsessive. And this is really about showing customers that you care about them. So it's being obsessive of the details and being attentive. And that's important when it comes to Kickstarter. You need to really be aware of all the little details. First of all, just the workload, all the things that need to be accomplished and done, and being able to delegate that to different people and organize yourself. But also the little details on manufacturing, because when you're dealing with the economies of scale, which is what you're doing with board games, the little details can have, huge impacts on your profits down the road. So it's obsessing over those small little things is really important when you are approaching Kickstarter and the board game industry as a business.
There's also another tidbit of information that people always fight over, and that's the term, should I go after my passion or what people want? And I think it's the same thing. If you go, if you go for your passion, you're going to be really, into it. You're going to be very obsessed, and people are going to notice. But then at the same time, what if it's like you're obsessive, but no one wants your Kickstarter?
I know it is delicate. If you don't have customers that care, then it's being obsessive is kind of just creepy.
Or
So
you
we
have a
have to.
hobby, you don't have a business, right?
Yeah, that's true. Exactly right. I mean, you can't just create any product and have people obsess over it. If people are making demands of you, they want more information, they want updates and things like that, that's usually because they care. So you should match their level of care and then add one, right? But if you don't have those people who are huge fans of what it is that you're doing, I just feel like you didn't create a product that people care about. That's one of the challenges here. Going back to that Mystery Science Theater 3000, that is a good product that people care about. And as a marketer, whenever I market something or we as a team market something, it is so much easier to get the job done when it's a great product. And a lot of the time, it's your positioning and other things like that, in addition to the actual quality of the product. Man, it's good when people care. The number one thing that came up in my head when you read that was communication. How do you show customers that you care? You communicate in a timely manner. You do what you say you're going to do, and that sort of thing. And there are really two major segments of this in my head. One is before your Kickstarter, and before and after Kickstarter. Maybe 3 segments for me. Before Kickstarter, you've got right after your Kickstarter, and then you've got right after your fulfillment. I think those are 3 different segments, and there are a lot of the time, people always think when they're starting a business in this industry, they launch their first Kickstarter, they try really hard because, like you said, Rick, they're very passionate about this product that they have. It's their game and the thing they've been working on, or whatever it is, that for the last however many years, and it's really easy to be passionate and obsessive. And when your Kickstarter is live, you're probably looking at that page for a good 6-8 hours a day. It might be on a new tab, while you're working, or maybe it's on your phone or something, but you are checking that thing more than you should.
Refresh
Now,
every 2 seconds.
yeah, seriously. I got a backer. Oh, I lost a backer. Don't do that, by the way. The idea that a lot of people don't think about is, after your Kickstarter, number one, it's very important to tell people what they should expect of you. So this is really important. In fact, the CEO of Simon, his name is Churn, and I actually can't pronounce his name, or I've never been told how his name is pronounced. But very, very smart guy. Interacted with him on a lot of Facebook groups and whatnot, and he is very adamant about, Kickstarter is a contract between you and your backers, and whatever you tell them is what they should expect of you. They're not these blanket rules that people should expect. Oh, you need to update us once every month, or once a week, or whatever, that kind of thing. You need to set expectations up front. And I think this is part of caring. So you have to protect yourself in a way, because you need to sleep, you need to eat, you need to spend time doing what you love to do outside of work. And Kickstarter is so easily able to threaten your all of those things, your sleep, your, work, your fun time outside of fulfilling this thing. You need to set expectations of, I will respond to messages 9 a.m. to 5 p.m., or I will not respond on weekends, or Sundays are my day off, or whatever it is. Those expectations you can always point customers to when they get upset that, oh, I sent you a message on Friday night at 9 p.m. and you didn't get back to me until Monday morning. It's a lot easier when you have written expectations for your customers. Now, all that said, the the importance of communicating on a regular basis is like the foundation of showing people that you care. So if you are not communicating on a regular basis, if your updates come in only when, quote unquote, there's something important to share, that is going to get a lot of people angry. It's more important in this industry to communicate and say, there's nothing to report. Our games are still on the boat. They're going to be there for another 4 weeks. It's more valuable to share nothing and to actually communicate than it is to just wait until the Suez Canal clears up and then send a message saying, oh yeah, our stuff's moving again. It is more important to hit your benchmark of communicating, of updating once every whatever time period you set. So once a month, some people do every 3 weeks, some people do every week, twice a week. I mean, I would recommend once a month. That's my kind of go-to. You can update more frequently if you have something to share or something that you really need to share, but I would say set expectations at once every 3 weeks to once every month.
And obviously, coming up to your Kickstarter, you're going to increase that volume.
Yes. So, and really, when I say once a month, you've got your email marketing before Kickstarter once a month. Hopefully, you've got a community that you've been building that you communicate more often than that. And then, yes, absolutely, when you're ramping up to your Kickstarter, you communicate more. But after the Kickstarter is over and after the lights turn off and, the spotlight's not on you anymore, once a month to keep your backers updated and engaged and following along, because you've got all this work to do now that you raised $1 million or $100, whatever it is. That's really important. And then after your product fulfills, people are going to send you emails, they're going to ask for replacement parts and that kind of thing, and you need to be very responsive. If somebody says, oh, my box came dented, it is more valuable for you to win a customer, win a fan, than it is to save $30 on sending, not sending a box. Like, our policy is that if your box is shattered, that we don't replace it. That is legitimately the policy of some board game companies. And I just feel like you are not winning over a fan by failing to help them in their moment of need. And they may not ever have another moment of need with you because they are upset and you just didn't win them over. But if you send them that box and if you lose money on that one single interaction, you will make a fan for life that will talk about you and be an evangelist for you. And I think that is so important.
I think another thing when it comes to being obsessive is obsessing over the quality of your product. So it's being obsessive to have that great art in your game, make sure the rules are very logical and clear, having a great website that basically whenever someone is engaging with your brand, your product, they are engaging with something that you have put blood, sweat, and tears into, and that's clear. You've clearly labored over this. You've clearly put a lot of thought into it, and that will show, and that certainly helps with the marketing.
Definitely. And, you have to be willing to listen to customers. I think that one of probably the biggest milestones in the development of Deliverance has been the miniatures. So the other day we had somebody join our Deliverance Insiders Facebook group. This guy, yeah, he was so passionate. He's like, I make toys as a hobby. He just like takes a bunch of parts from other things and he makes these really awesome toys and he even puts them in plastic boxes and things like that to preserve them. And he just was so upset that we did not have miniatures. He's like, you have to delay your Kickstarter. You have to do whatever you have to do because it would be so nice if you had miniatures. And it was nice to be able to tell him, yeah, we do. And it's so common for somebody to log in, maybe not see, they're not going to scroll through all the posts, right? But we totally do have miniatures. And so I was able to respond, thankfully we have miniatures. Yay. Just to simply have listened to my fans on that. I told my fans, no, we're not doing miniatures like a year or 2 years ago. And they beat my door down so hard that eventually I just was like, all right, fine. Here's our first miniature sculpt, and everyone just went
I even
nuts.
yelled at Andrew about it. I'm like, you need miniatures. I bugged him for
Everybody did.
days. Every
Yep.
day I was like, miniatures, miniatures.
Yeah, I remember playing Deliverance with Sam Healy, and he was like, okay, first thing, this game needs minis, and second, and I'm like, okay, well, what's your second thing? Because I don't want to talk about that, because I'm not doing minis. Yeah, we're doing minis, Sam. To actually be able to show customers, my customers that were my fans, that I care enough about what you have to say that I'm going to listen to you, and I'm going to put myself through 9 months of torture in order to get these minis finished for you guys. That actually really meant something to them.
Point number 2 is don't stop.
Is this
So
like
just,
don't stop believing? Or is this like don't stop like my diet? Like,
I think it's
oops, I
like,
stopped.
don't stop me now. I'm having such a good time.
Oh, nice one. Nice one.
We will be conducting the rest of the podcast episode as a song.
This I think is a tough one for a lot of people. I'm the guy who likes to create like all these ideas and then start them and then never finish any of them. And of course, none of them get done. And I know the two of you have heard some of my ideas and seen some of the stuff, and none of it's done. Uh, and this
It's
also
all
might
like
go.
10% done.
It also, I think, goes with the first one. I believe about being obsessive. If you're obsessive about something, you're not going to stop. And times may look tough, and you may want to stop. But I'm going to say 90% of the time, try to go through it. And because at the end, you'll be like, oh, this wasn't as bad as I thought it was. This actually turned out okay. So you might have regrets. Or if you stop, you can be like, well, what if I kept following my diet or,
right,
following my Kickstarter fundraising and let it go through? You never know what's going to happen at the end. And so, yeah, that's a tough one for me. It's that one is close to my heart on things I need to do better in.
I'll say one thing about that is, to me, don't stop as a business lesson. What that means to me is don't quit. So I actually don't. I look at your ideas and the things that you've put together. You've had like a text-based like RPG. You've had like this like a fun idea for a mafia game. We talked about that stuff, and I think that coming up with ideas is really the foundation of a creative person, and that if you stop doing that, then that's where the problem is. And when I was working on Deliverance, for example, I had other game designs that I'm working on, and then Deliverance all of a sudden just became the main thing that had the most legs, I guess, or the best legs to actually become something people could be passionate about. And eventually I decided to forsake all other things for the pursuit of Deliverance. I was, became quite obsessive over that. But I think that, the exploration of ideas and working on things, I mean, it was, it's very common, especially with board games. People are working on multiple designs, and maybe they kind of get stuck with a design. And you're not quitting by letting something rest for a while and then coming back to it, trying to make it work, and then giving it a rest, moving to other projects, other ideas, other designs, and then circling back, a year later or whatever it is. I don't think there's any problem with that. I think that just the pursuit of creativity is, I think, the foundation of something greater.
I was reading a quote this week, and it said, when a train goes through a tunnel and it gets dark, you don't throw away the ticket and jump off. You sit still and trust the engineer. And there's certain times in life where things just look dark and nothing's working. And sometimes you just need to push through them. And a lot of those hardships, and even if it's a complete failure, it really sort of refines your character and then lines you up for the next project. And you're going to bring all this knowledge and experience from a failed project or a difficult time in your life to a new circumstance, which would then propel that to success. So it's just about being persistent.
In relation to not quitting and what you said, Sean, if you don't ever want to quit, it is my view that you are not trying hard enough, or you haven't been trying for long enough. If you haven't faced opposition either from outside or from your own, what do they call it, imposter syndrome. I have imposter syndrome like crazy. There have been times in my marketing business that I wanted to quit. I mean, there was a time where I was minus $1,500, or I'm sorry, minus $300 in my bank account. I bought a burrito from Taco Bell that cost me $36. It's like a $1 burrito or whatever that cost me, because of the overdraft fee. It was huge. I had
Goodness.
$1,500 of bills due 14 days ago. So I have a little condo. My mortgage payment's like $950 at the time. And it was about to basically, when you're more than 15 days late on a mortgage, it's going to go like on your permanent record that you are an idiot and nobody should loan to you for a while. And man, it was rough. And I wanted to quit because as a creative at the time, I was, doing website design and other things like that. And I just didn't have enough work. It was really tough, man. I was like, I just wanted to get, and really there is a positive to just having a paycheck that you can rely on every 2 weeks or whatever, but man, I'll tell you what, I wanted to quit so bad. And I'm glad I did not, the grass looked greener on the other side. And if I knew what I knew now, I probably would never start a business. I would never have started a business. But because I didn't know what trouble I would get into and found myself experiencing adversity, I was able to muster up the courage to push through. And now, here we are with this podcast. We made
And you
it,
get to hang
guys.
out with me and Sean.
Yes.
Woo!
Yeah,
So,
another
yeah.
quote I heard is, if the grass looks greener on the other side, it's probably a picture.
Or it's probably because of the manure.
Yeah, yeah.
So on that note, what's point number 3? It just seems so relevant to what I just said.
It says get paid because your skills are valuable. This often comes to the offer that we talked about in the previous episode, is recognizing that when you put the hard work into something, you've created something valuable, and the exchange of money for that product or that service is just goes without saying. So it's understanding your value and charging a fair price, not charging something that's gonna leave you out or leave the customer out. So it's understanding what's a fair price and charging that.
Yeah, I had a friend that is a board game designer, went to Kickstarter and did his, had a successful Kickstarter event. He had a print and play that he did, like a low quality black and white print and play for people to just have for free. And someone was like, in the print and play community, they wanted a high quality color version, and he was like, "Yeah, I'd be happy to do that. I'll charge you $5 for it." And people were pissed about that. Some people were really upset. And he's like, "Dude, it's not like all of this art and everything was free. I paid an artist, I paid a graphic designer, I thought about this and worked on this and play tested this for hundreds of hours, and you're expecting it to be free. It is not free. There's value to this." And I was really proud of him for doing that.
I think it's maybe the problem with a lot of the way things are monetized these days is that they have the appearance of being free. For instance, YouTube videos, you think they're free content, but actually the reason a lot of creators are creating YouTube videos is either to get enough attention and put ads on those videos, or it is to direct traffic somewhere to like an e-commerce store where they can make some money. So it has this veneer of being free, but in reality it is costing them, and they are expecting some type of financial exchange to happen down the road. So I think it has created in the consumer this false sense of what is free, when actually there's money to be had. Same with Facebook. You think you're creating a free account, but they're leveraging all your personal information to have highly so they can have highly targeted ads, and business people and pay Facebook to send you ads. So
Right? You think you're listening to a free podcast right now? Back when I was that freelancer that was negative in the bank and that kind of thing, I did everything I could to charge, to be cheap and to be affordable and that kind of thing, because really what it comes down to, a lot of people have this mindset. When I was that guy charging low prices, I felt like, hey, I wouldn't be able to pay more than $1,500 for a website. So why am I charging people more than, I'd charge people $1,000 for a website, spend, 150 hours on it and wonder why my bank account was so light at the end of the day. It's one of those things that you have to charge what a product is worth to the market. And what this means, like for a board game, a little bit of math here, the retail cost of a board game is based on at least a multiplier of 5 times the landed cost of that board game. And this is, in most cases. So if it takes you $10 to get a board game printed and shipped from China to your fulfillment center, like per game, maybe you ship 500 or 1,500 or 5,000 copies of a game to a fulfillment center. Let's say it costs you $10 each game to do that. Well, the landed cost is $10, so the retail price should be 50 or 49, right? So that's how the supply chain works. You need to be able to sell it distribution for a certain percentage of 40%, so that'd be $20 that you get. So $10 you paid, $20 you're getting from distribution, so your margin is $10 minus whatever other expenses. And the eventual down the road, the retailer's going to sell it at their store for $50. If you look and say, well, $50 is just so expensive, I produced it for 10, I'm going to sell it for 30, then number one, the supply chain won't work, which, the distributor is going to want to buy it for 40% of the retail price. So that is going to be like $12 or whatever, $12.50. I can't, math is hard, but it's not enough to run a profitable business. So you need to charge what you have to charge in order to be sustainable. If you want to create a game and just let the world experience it and that's it, and you don't really care so much about a business, it's just a hobby, then charge hobby prices. But if you want to actually have a business, and if you want to create a second game, or better yet, if you want to reprint the first game because it was popular, then you better charge what it takes in order to develop the money to reprint after you sell out of all of your stock.
That's very similar to that the famous article I saw. It came out like 10 or 20 years ago. It's that Nike article where how does a $9 shoe become $90, in a store? And it's the same concept. It costs $9 to make, but then it's got to get shipped out. And then from there, it's got to get import tax and customs. And then from there, it's got to be shipped again. And then from there, the retailers have to sell at a price where they get a percentage of the profits too. Every step, there's, someone needs a profit. And then at the end, you still haven't even marketed it yet. So then you got to put money in for marketing. I mean, it's the same thing. There's all these little costs that you may not realize you have now that's going to end up, like when you get closer to the time of actually delivering the product, you're like, oh, I didn't think of this. Oh, I didn't think of this. And so it's always good to have that cushion. Like Andrew said, to do like, the standard is usually about 5 times. That way, in case things come up, you got, a little bit of wiggle room in your margin for it.
Quickly moving on to point number 4. Everything changes, and this is really focused on tools. Tools of the trade change. So don't fall in love with processes. Be willing to adapt. Be willing to learn the broader things of your industry, of your market, because the minutia of individual tools and products change. Updates happen. Things that work today might not work tomorrow, but there's sort of broader philosophies that a lot of what we've just spoken about will not change. And those things are good to think about and master so that you can adapt to the changing technology.
Really, buyer behavior is where everything is kind of founded. So when somebody buys something, back in 1900, you used to go to your general store. He would have the milk from the farmer and the tools from the crafts, the blacksmith and other things like that in one place. And he would know your name, and he would know what you would buy all the time, and you would be able to special order a thing and he would get it for you. And in like 8 weeks, the oxen pulling the cart would finally get here. And
is this one of your like realized RPG MMOs coming to life?
I'm just having fun. I don't even know what I'm saying right now. I'm just talking. But you look at 2021, and we do business over Zoom right now. We congregate in Facebook communities, on Discord, on, we're trying to find other social networks because, that's just what people are doing right now. But we have the world has become very small. I mean, Sean, you're in Ireland. We have Alex over in Colombia. Rick and I are in San Diego. And that's just, we're able to do that because of technology, right? And so it's really hard. If you go to, a grocery store, we have Vons, Albertsons, Publix, whatever. You go to a grocery store, they don't know your name. It's probably a new person stocking the shelves and, that kind of thing. And so the way to market, the way to reach people changes. But the basic underlying philosophy of people buy products that are uniquely custom designed for them and their situation has never changed. All the way from the old school 1900s general store to selling a product on Facebook. You want to niche down to the right person. You're not trying to sell everything or, your product to everyone who can fog up a mirror because they're alive. The message that you use has to be something that solves, their whatever their pain point is. And the medium that we use, which is where, the three of us operate, we sell stuff on Facebook right now. We sell stuff on Google. We sell stuff on, you can sell stuff on all sorts of different places. I'm sure you guys could fill in the blanks. Things change. I would say 3 years ago, our business was dominantly SEO marketing, on Google. And after a time, more people are migrating into Facebook and using Facebook as a service, especially in this niche of Kickstarter. And so this is like the dominant area. But we are constantly looking to be ahead of the curve. I don't want to have some sort of social media platform that has amazing analytics and amazing ways to advertise to people to come out and me not know how to operate it. Right. So what's number 5?
You're not that great. Keep learning and upskilling. So it's this idea that these sort of roll into each other, right? Everything changes. Well, because everything's changing, you need to continually upskill, continually learn the new tools, learn what's working, and always be in a state of learning. Never sort of just become stagnant.
And that's kind of the whole premise of this podcast, is a discovery of what actually works, right? Which will probably change.
It also reminds me of my good old days at the local college. About 4 or 5 years ago, I decided I'm going to get myself an associate's degree in computer science, and I took all the classes, and I got down to like 1 or 2 classes, but I had to leave because I had like work or something. Something prevented me from going to the class. I can't remember what it was, but I had to stop taking the classes. Well, recently, since COVID, everything's online. So I'm like, you know what? I could take online classes, and like, this is great. Well, I sign up, and then I'm looking, and all the classes I took are gone. They've been replaced with new computer science classes because, things change so much in the computer industry. And so, yeah, if you're not on the top of the curve, you're going to have a big surprise when you just show up and be like, oh, yeah. And then I literally have to retake the entire course. Like, there's maybe 1 or 2 classes out of all of them that are okay. Because like there's computer basics. I mean, those don't really change. Windows doesn't change because of Bill Gates. Thank you, Bill Gates. But yeah,
One time they got rid of the start button and I was not happy.
So
Windows 8, yeah.
always learn. This is also true in SEO. I do a lot of SEO, and like every month, Google's got a new algorithm. They got a new thing. Oh, speed is in. Oh, no, it's out. Now it's all about this or that, and it consists. And everyone has an opinion, and it always is changing. So I usually, what I do is I actually have all these news groups I have saved, and I go through those all the time. Just to see a lot, because a lot of it's hearsay, especially in the SEO industry. And so I actually keep track of the things that people keep repeating, like, oh, this source said it, and this source also said it, this source also said it. So it might be something to look into. So yeah, if you got to keep learning, you got to keep current with what's going on around you. Otherwise, you are just an old fuddy-duddy like me.
Yeah, and I don't think people will want to pay somebody that stops learning. One of the things that I constantly preach is that when our clients pay us, they're paying us to think. So they're not paying us just because we're an expert and just because we know what we're doing, that we are in a process of discovery with each individual client. The other day, we met with one of our larger clients and in the board game space, and it turned out that we had been developing the ads that we had developed and implemented earned an average return on ad spend of about $34 for every dollar that we spent. And if you're not familiar with the way that ad spend works, if you make $34 for every dollar that you spend on advertising, you should spend an infinite amount of money, and you will have more money than Elon Musk at that point. That's basically what Warren Buffett did. I think he got like a 23% return on average.
If you get a 2-to-1 return, that's great.
There comes a point. It's like 3-to-1, I think.
Yeah, most companies want a 3-to-1 just to be safe. But yeah, what was that again? 34-to-1?
Yeah, it was about 34-to-1. Some and it wasn't small dollars either. It was like mid 5 figures that we had generated for this company, and just in the week. Right. So it would be quite easy to say, wow, we really know what we're doing. We're just we're going to rest on our laurels. But they're not paying us like a percentage of what money they're making. They're paying us to get results, right? So we can't just sit on our butt and say, oh, you made that much money, give me a check now or whatever. But we should be saying, yay, that's excellent. How can we make 50 to 1? Every company starts at a different place, and certain companies are just going to have products that really sell. And in this case, this company has some very well-known intellectual properties that they work with, and that sort of thing. And we just have the pleasure of, selling products that people really want. And so it doesn't, just because they make more money, it doesn't mean that we're going to stop thinking, or that we're going to stop trying to innovate, or, that kind of thing. Right.
Absolutely. Number 6, surround yourself with people better than you.
That's why Andrew hired me. I mean, no, I'm just kidding.
Rick, you're smarter than me, and Sean, you're better looking.
So Andrew is well surrounded, I guess.
Yes, I am very well surrounded. Actually, I will say this, is that when I was, a solo entrepreneur by myself selling websites and doing SEO, I hired my first person back in 2014, and I really needed to do it earlier. It was very difficult to make my first hire, because then all of a sudden I was responsible for somebody's livelihood, somebody's income, somebody's health insurance, or whatever. We didn't have health at the time. We had like no benefits. It was awful. It made my life so much easier. I hired somebody to do the thing that I hated. I hated actually doing the website development. And I hired somebody that hated talking to people. All he wanted to do was sit in a dark room and do website development. And it was crazy, the amount of efficiency that my life just improved by leaps and bounds, because all of a sudden the work that would take me 40 hours a week, in addition to selling and to managing a business and managing a family and that kind of thing, it was just so much more, I guess, so much easier, because I had somebody that could think and handle that. I think that surrounding yourself with people better than you would be certain skill sets, people that are better at doing certain things, or maybe that really love to do certain things. When I hire in for my company, I try to put somebody in a position where they really enjoy doing that thing, and I actually, Sean, we recently hired a new employee. His name is Ryan, and the intent is kind of for Ryan to take some of the stuff that is super time consuming for you, right? Because the whole Kickstarter thing is growing a lot.
Mm-hmm.
If your goal is to produce something for Kickstarter, then guess what? You want to talk to people who've done it. You want to know people who have gone through the process, who've already had a Kickstarter, who can tell you what worked and what didn't. I mean, you don't want to go online and be like, "Hey guys, can you tell me how to make a good Kickstarter?" And some Joe Blow comes on, it's like, "Oh yeah, well you need people. People need to like you." And I'm like, okay, that's nice.
Just get 1,000 emails.
You need people in your what they call it, tribe. I think Seth Godin calls it tribes. Make a tribe. You need people in your tribe. Hopefully, we don't get in trouble for copyright. That that will help you with the things that you need to get done.
It's also about having mentors, right? People you look up to, people you want to imitate. You can see something admirable in them. Either it's a skill or a quality, and having them have influence in your life and being in contact with them. And I think that idea of having older, more experienced people around you is very useful to have. And I've tried to surround myself with people who have expertise in IT, or expertise in different fields, so that if I run into issues, they're just a phone call away, and I can get some counsel, and then it works with them as well. If they need anything that I have, the skill set that I possess, then, and I just think that's a good way to build your network, is to keep that in mind.
Definitely. A good CPA, a great graphic designer, a great concept artist. I mean, all of these things are things that I can't do, that just a bookkeeper. I hate looking at my books. It's like the very first subcontractor I ever hired was a bookkeeper. And I am so glad I did, because boy, do I not like looking at QuickBooks. I just send him an email and say, send me my profit and loss, or send me my income statement, or whatever I need, to get this stuff for taxes. Let it be so. And then he says, okay. And there it is.
Number 7, be careful what you wish for. The grass is not always greener. So I suppose this comes down to expectations. You could have a certain expectation. Oh, if I have a very successful board game, my life will look like this, or I will feel like this. And when it happens, it's like, oh, it's nothing like that. In fact, there's all these negatives associated to it. And I suppose life is just about trade-offs, isn't it? You know, if you have this, it's going to impact something somewhere else. So it's to maybe evaluate your goals and to really think about all the outcomes of those before you really dive into them, really commit yourself to those goals.
Yep. You know, a lot of the time people look at Kickstarter and say, oh, if I could only make, $300,000 on Kickstarter, I could quit this miserable job and get unstuck from my situation. That is not a mindset that will be healthy for you. Even if you make a lot of money and you make some mistakes, you could end up eating all of your profit margin and not having enough to go to McDonald's, right? But you still need to fulfill that game. So just make sure that whatever that you're not using Kickstarter as a scapegoat for some other element of life that is difficult.
I think, it comes to as well is learning contentment. It's good to have ambitions and goals and desires, but there's an element to it that need to be held a little bit loosely because life is life changes and there's so many things out of your personal control that you need to be adaptable. I really think is key, learning how to pivot and learning contentment in things which can't be taken away or things that can't be disrupted easily. That is probably where you're going to get a bit more emotional stability in order to have a thriving business.
Yeah, there are sometimes in the past, not recently, thankfully, but I've been chewed out so hard by a client, and it's just been like, oh man, they were really unhappy because of one reason or another. And at the end of the day, I, get up from the computer, I head back home, and my mind transitions to family and other things like that. And I compartmentalize. I just tell myself, oh, well, that's just work. That was just work. It was just a, tougher work day to day, and I'm fine. And I'll deal with it tomorrow when I go back to work. In that way, compartmentalizing helps me to be content.
It's interesting how, like, if you sleep on it and wake up the next day, that's like, oh, this is how I solve the problem. There's a lot of times I'll be like, oh man, this is bad. I don't know how I'm going to fix this. And then I just sort of let it go and sleep on it. And the next morning it's like, oh yeah, duh. Okay, we're going. We're good. Everything's great.
All right, Sean, what's the last?
Number 8, don't get comfortable. So always be busy. Don't get lazy. It's easy to get comfortable and everything is like, that's a very dangerous place to be in business where everything is going well, because you can start to maybe put the pedal off the metal a little bit, get comfortable, and then suddenly the competition overtakes you and suddenly the things change and now you're stranded somewhere. And so don't get comfortable. Always be striving and pushing yourself to do better, to improve your services, improve your products, improve your processes. That applies to Kickstarter, but just generally everything in life.
Absolutely.
But yeah, a lot of companies, especially in America, because we're just America, have failed because of getting too comfortable. Back in the good old days in the 1950s and 60s, a lot of major companies had like R&D research, divisions, and it seems like no one these days has. I mean, they probably do; they're just not announcing it. But they always were looking for the next thing because, I mean, that's how you survive. Like, look at G&E. They've been around forever, and they own everything from toothbrushes to light bulbs. I mean, but they keep researching and finding things. Yeah, it's almost the same as keep learning and upskilling. But yeah. Anyway, I think that's all the time we have for this week's episode of Crowdfunding Nerds. A big shout out to Sexy Irish Sean for finally cleaning his office and finding that old degraded secret underground pink diary of 8 tips.
That was a fun podcast.
And as always, if you like this episode and you want to check out our other episodes, please visit crowdfundingnerds.com. And if you have any questions for us, head over to crowdfundingnerds.com/question, and we will get that and answer it. And if it's a great question, it's going to end up on one of our future podcasts. So thank you all, my lovely nerds, for listening to us this week, and stay nerdy, and we'll see you next week.
Wicked sick.
Bye-bye.
See ya.